Festival Pier, and then there will be another stop at Bankside. There is a fully licensed bar, that's downstairs in the lobby area, serving tea, coffee, hot chocolate, soft drinks, light bar snacks, most importantly of all, beer, wine and spirits. The bar is open throughout the duration of your journey. And if you're looking for the toilets, they're downstairs towards the back of the vessel. On the left-hand side of the boat, that's the port side, is the ladies. On the right-hand side, the gents. Any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact a crew member. Sit back, relax, enjoy your cruise, and we'll talk to you again very shortly. So please bear with me. Now we're just approaching the Waterloo Road Bridge, which at one time was the longest bridge to span the Thames. Until 1991 it was superseded by the QE2 bridge, which resides downstream at a place called Longreach, and that's near Dartford. But as we pass through it, here to our right, you'll see this large concrete building with the flashing billboard in the centre. This is our National Theatre, one of London's most premier theatres. It incorporates three separate ones within, those being the Dorfman, the Littleton and the 1400-seater Sir Laurence Olivier, which is home to some of the finest acoustics anywhere in the world. King Charles, he said that building looked like the back end of a nuclear power station. He said it was the ugliest modern day building he'd ever seen in his life. And us knowing King Charles, he is definitely an expert on ugly things. Of course, I am talking about buildings, but he compared its brutalist architecture to looking like, as I said before, the back end of a nuclear power station. And they couldn't understand why they built something so horrific opposite a building as beautiful as this to our left, with the green dome in the centre. That's Somerset House. It was originally built as a palace for the Dukes and Earls of Somerset, although they never got to live there because they were found traitors to the throne by King Henry VIII and executed. So it was later converted into the headquarters and administration offices for our country's Registrar General, where we kept all the records of births, deaths and marriages. It's now been taken over by the world's biggest criminal organisation, the Inland Revenue. Continuing to our left-hand side though, on the shore you'll see that large white ship with the yellow funnel. This is the HQS Wellington. At one time she was a sloop in the New Zealand Royal Navy, and up until recently she was the only floating livery hall anywhere in the world, and that was to the Honourable Company of Master Mariners. But at the start of last year, the Master Mariners Company were evicted from the ship. For the first time in nearly 40 years, the Master Mariners will not hold residency aboard the Wellington. Apparently, it's going to be far more lucrative and profitable as a floating bar and nightclub. Behind that though, in amongst the trees on the river's wall, you'll see what looks like a large stone column. It is in fact an archway, and it's known as Temple Gate. That's the boundary line between two cities. the City of Westminster, which very shortly you'll be leaving, and the City of London, which you are just about to enter. The City of London is one of the smallest capital cities anywhere in the world, measuring in at just 1 square mile. The area surrounding it inside the M25, that's the large circular motorway that everyone tends to get stuck on, that's all known as Greater London, all 32 boroughs of it. The city is the actual square mile, and this archway here on your left, just coming into view there at the stern of the ship, that's the westernmost boundary line to it. It actually denotes the water's westernmost boundary. If you look to the road behind it, either side, you'll see the 2 silver griffins on the stone plinths. These mark the landside's westernmost boundary, and you'll find them at all of the major entrances into the capital city. If you've been in London for a few days now, you've had a walk around town, you've been on the tubes, you may have noticed there's quite a few places with the word gate at the end. So here obviously we have Temple Gate. Down at the Tower, we have Tower Gate. Then you have places like Bishopsgate, Moorgate, Kingsgate, Aldgate. These are all of the major entrances into the square mile city of London. The last thing you'll see within the square mile city, though, over here to your left, you'll see one of the classic red telephone boxes. Now, there are hundreds of thousands of these scattered all around Greater London, but this is the last one that resides within the square mile city, soon to be converted into a 2-bedroom luxury accommodation with riverside views. Then here to our right, the large red brick building with the spire at the top. If you look to the spire, you'll see the letters OXO. Well, you've probably guessed it, that's where they used to make those famous little brown stock cubes that make the best gravy in the world. That is, of course, you can get them out of those little silver wrappers. Formerly their headquarters for OXO. Laws on the River state, you can't advertise the name of your company or product along the banks of the Thames. OXO cleverly got around that law by incorporating the name of the product into the spire at the top of the building. It's now been converted into pretty much what every other building here in London is today. You have an expensive row of shops along the bottom, a luxury expensive restaurant on the top, and unaffordable housing in the middle. And then back to our left, just behind the workings here, you'll see another red brick building, which is built in the Palladian design. That is the old Zion College and Libraries, home to many rare and religious manuscripts, the most famous being Queen Victoria's own personal Bible written on William Caxton's press. The building next door to it, the white one with the green sloping roof on top, that is the old City of London School for Boys, where many of our peers and elder statesmen have been educated, such as Lord Asquith, Sir Anthony Eden, and of course Sir Winston Spencer Churchill, before going on to further their educations at Eton and Harrow respectively. But at this point of the river, we approach a place where there's 3 bridges very closely together. It is in fact the closest of any 3 along the banks of the Thames. This first one is the Blackfriars Road Bridge. And if you look to the tops of the columns, you'll see carvings of birds. There's a different carving of a different bird underneath the top of each individual column. And these were put here to resemble the different types of fish-eating waterfowl that can be found along the banks of the Thames. The ones on this upper side of the bridge are freshwater birds, facing the freshwater source around 175 miles behind us at the Cotswolds. And the ones on the lower side are seawater birds, facing the seawater source around 40 miles in front of us in the estuary. The reason they've been put here is because experts believe that it's at this point where the salt water and the fresh water meet, and it then becomes brackish, which is the type of water we have here in the Thames. The second bridge, the one with the red columns and no top, they're the remains of the first ever railway bridge to expand the banks of the Thames, the old Alexandra Railway Bridge, designed by our famous engineer Sir Isambard Kingdom Brunel to service the Dover to Chatham railway line. They took the top of the bridge down because they thought it unfit to support the weight of modern day trains. However, they couldn't remove the columns because it had undermined the foundations to the final one of the 3, which is the Blackfriars Railway Bridge. And as we pass through it, take a glance across London's skyline. You'll see it's ever changing. All the old historical buildings and places of real character are now being dominated by luxury skyscrapers, office blocks and apartments. A very good example of this, ahead of us here to your right, that large glass structure. That was all constructed as part of the redevelopment of the London Bridge Overground Station. Now that's the Shard, built to resemble a shard of glass. At 1,019 feet high, it's the tallest building in Western Europe, and it's made up of blocks of offices, a shopping centre, various hotels, bars, restaurants and luxury apartments, and also situated right up on the 77th floor is a viewing gallery. Also to our right, the large brown brick building with a tall chimney in the centre. That's the old Bankside Power Station. which 25 years ago was bought up and converted into the Tate Modern Art Galleries. You can go in there and see such magical exhibits as half a cow in a plastic box, an unmade teenager's bed, a light that flicks itself on and off 24 hours a day. 10 years ago, they spent nearly £30,000 on a jar of poo. The building is absolutely free to enter, and after walking around it for about half an hour, you do tend to realise why. And as we approach the Millennium Footbridge, dominating the skyline to our left, a real work of art, the magnificent dome and golden cross of St Paul's Cathedral. St Paul stands 365 feet high, which is easily remembered for being a foot for every day of the year. The dome of St Paul's weighs 64,000 tonnes and is the second largest unsupported cathedral dome in the world, the largest being that on St Peter's in the Vatican city of Rome. And as we pass through the Millennium Footbridge, here to our right, you'll see the white building with the thatched roof on top. This is the first wooden building to be built in the city since the Great Fire of London, the new Globe Playhouse Theatre. It was the life's work and dream of an American actor and director from Boston who went by the name of Sam Wanamaker. He raised the funds and designed the plans for the project, but sadly he died a couple of years before its completion. So his daughter, the actress Zoe Wanamaker, you may know her from programmes like Love Hurts, My Family. I think she was also in a few of the Harry Potter films as well. She took over the project, and the Globe, believe it or not, will be 28 years old this November. Hard to believe it's been there that long. Now folks, we do have an additional stop to make here at Bankside Pier for the Tate Modern, St Paul's and the Globe. There's a couple of people leaving us here at this point, so you bear with us, and we'll continue downstream momentarily. Thank you. Gates, and beneath those gates, there's a flight of stone steps that lead into the water. These are famously known as Wren's Steps. That's where Sir Christopher Wren used to walk down daily to board the waterman's vessel of old, and then cross over to the construction site of St Paul's Cathedral. They're more commonly known these days as the Southwark Causeway, but they're also in folklore known as Nancy Steps, because it was said to be where in the Charles Dickens novel Oliver, Bill Sykes did a lot of his courting with the lady of the same name. There's a royal charter upon that little set of steps there on your right, saying they can never ever legally be removed. That's why the Southwark Road Bridge that was constructed here in 1921 is partly built on top of them. As we pass through the bridge though, continue into our right hand side. Sorry, you'll see coming into view here a small brown brick building with redwood and window frames. That is the anchor of Bankside, one of the oldest pubs on the banks of the Thames. Parts of that building date back over 400 years. And it was in the original structure where famously Shakespeare and his players used to get changed before going to act out plays in the Old Globe, which once stood somewhere behind the pub in a place called Park Street. It was also frequented by two of London's most famous diarists, Dr. Johnson and Samuel Pepys. And if you really don't believe me how old the pub is, look to the gold anchor sign at the top of the building. Look closely to the bottom left-hand corner of the sign. You'll see written in black, it says built 1615, making the pub 409 this year. The next bridge we approach is the Cannon Street Railway Bridge. This is the first railway crossing to span the complete width of the Thames on your way inward bound from the sea. The Cannon Street Railway Station is the large building to our left with the twin Victoria bell towers at either side. As we pass through the bridge though, if you look to your left underneath it, you'll see coming into view very shortly a glass balcony. Now this forms part of the health spa, and that glass balcony area there on your left is their sauna. But someone's made a massive error, because what they've done is they put the reversible glass windows on the wrong way round. So they can't see out, but we can see in. Some days the views are better than others. Some days you wish you never looked over there at all. And then here to our right in the St Mary Overy Dock, you'll see this black ship with the scaffolding around it. Now, have any of you on board ever seen the film The Pirates of the Caribbean? Show of hands. Anyone seen that film? Yeah? Good stuff. Well, this ship here on your right hand side has absolutely nothing to do with that film whatsoever. That is a replica of Sir Francis Drake's old galleon, the Golden Hind. This version of the Hind has circumnavigated the world twice, which is once more than the original, following the exact steps that Drake took under the secret orders of Queen Elizabeth I. Also, for any of our American cousins travelling with us, here to your right, in the gap between the last two buildings, you'll see there's a church. That is the Southwark Cathedral, home to the famous monument to the Great Fire of London. The monument stands 202 feet high, and it's said if laid in an easterly direction, it would strike the exact spot where the Great Fire was said to have started, that being a small baker's shop in Woodin Lane. Also to our left, the Yellow Brick Building. That's one of the oldest buildings anywhere in the city. It is the original Billingsgate Fish Market. There was a fish market famously registered on that site for over 1,000 years, until sadly, a few years ago, in the 80s, the tradition was broken and the fish market was moved further downriver to larger premises in the Docklands area. But from one of London's oldest buildings, behind it you'll see one of London's newest buildings, this weird shaped one that gets wider as it gets taller. That's been nicknamed the Walkie Talkie. It actually hasn't even got a name, it's just known as number 20 Fenchurch Street. But as is commonplace of all the glass buildings here in London today, it's got a viewing gallery at the top. You see that large open glass space up there with a balcony? That's their viewing gallery. And it's a bit different to the others. This one's called the Sky Garden of London. It's an indoor botanical garden made up of a couple of bars and a couple of restaurants. And believe it or not, unlike most things in the world today, it's absolutely free to go on. Absolutely free. All you need to do is book online in advance at theskygarden.london. But here's another tip for you. Directly behind that building, there's an even taller building. And that's called 22 Bishopsgate. And right at the top of that is something called Horizon 22, which is the newest viewing gallery here in London, and that's also free to go up. But the difference between that and the Sky Garden, firstly, Horizon 22 is taller. It is in fact the tallest viewing gallery anywhere in London, even taller than that of the Shards. But also, you don't have to book in advance to go up there. You can just go to the door at the side of the building, get in the lift and go up and have a look around. Folks, for those of you on the top deck, please do not stand in the centre aisle. If you're standing in the centre aisle, my colleague can't see where he's going, and that's not a good day out for anyone, so please refrain from standing continuously in the centre aisles. Thank you. Here to the right hand side, London's very own warship, C-35, code name for Her Majesty's vessel HMS Belfast. Belfast was built in the Harland and Wharf shipyard, Northern Ireland, in 1938. That is the same shipyard as the ill-fated Titanic was built. Later commissioned in 1939, she saw many phases of war. She took part in the D-Day landings at Normandy, the North Atlantic convoys at the Battle of the Atlantic, and also the chasing, shelling and eventual sinking of the German battleship Scharnhorst. She last fired her guns in anger during the Korean campaign of the 50s, where she was in fact the flagship for the United Nations. Then said to be scrapped by the government, she was saved by the Imperial War Museum. The vessel now stands here today permanently and peacefully moored as a floating maritime museum to naval life at sea, and with 7 wonderful decks aboard her to explore, she is well worth a visit. Then back over to our left, one of the most historical landmarks anywhere in the world, the Tower of London. That was started in 1078 by William the Conqueror. He actually started the centrepiece, the main tower with the 4 turrets, which is either called the White Tower or the Norman Keep. Following reigning monarchs added to it, and in its time it's been many things: a palace, a fortress, a royal mint. Believe it or not, at one time, the road downriver from the old Westminster Palace, which we all know today as the Houses of Parliament, they were taken up through that archway and up onto Tower Hill, Tower Green, where they were later executed, which is more often than not their heads being chopped off. The night before they were due to be executed, they was usually stored in a park called the Bloody Tower. You can't see that today because it's behind the bloody tree. Sorry, what was that? There's a man in the water. Oh, there is. Steve, we just gone right past Gator there in the water. Thank you very much for that.
What is it? Where is he? Did you see that? Buyurun tamam geri alacağım. Buyurun. Surviving. ठीक है. क्लैप करिए जब आप सेव करें.
Hanging on, Chris, yeah?
Yeah.